So Narendra Modi is all set to be named as the Prime Ministerial candidate tomorrow, but there are still a few last-minute hurdles, perhaps some family drama in the Parivar that has to be tackled, and Rajnath Singh is at this moment busy doing that. These are the details coming in on our news break tonight. The details of the meeting between Rajnath Singh and Sushma Swaraj. We are told that Sushma Swaraj conveyed to the party president that her position on Narendra Modi remains unchanged and that she will want to express it at a meeting of the parliamentary board. We're also being told that Rajnath is busy trying to build consensus, but that consensus has not quite fallen into place yet. Sushil Kumar Modi, the Bihar BJP leader, who today said that Advani needed to understand that the cadres wanted Modi. We are told that Advani is extremely upset by these remarks, and Advani too is saying there must be a meeting of the parliamentary board where he too wants to express his opposition to Narendra Modi. And Rajnath Singh perhaps now has to figure this out. Does he call a meeting of the parliamentary board, or does he simply make a direct announcement? Either way, the die has been cast. Advani or no Advani, it seems there's no option for the BJP but Modi. What will that do to the campaign of 2014? Let's take you straight now to our political punch tonight. We're joined by Abhishek Singhvi of the Congress Party. We're also joined here in the studio by Piyush Goyal of the BJP. With me in the studio, Swapan Das Gupta, who's of course a senior commentator and columnist. And joining us from Patna tonight is Pawan Verma. He's with the JDU and an advisor to the Nitish Kumar government. Of course, the question should be asked that Advani, does he even count for anything in the BJP anymore, despite the platitudes that are being dished out about him being the patriarch of the party? But before we come to that, and Abhishek Singhvi, I'm sure you will start by pointing to Advani. Why is it that the Congress suddenly quotes Advani every time they want to talk about Narendra Modi? After all, Advani was an ideological target on the other side of the trenches for the Congress party. Do you not think that the BJP has stolen a march over the Congress in at least zeroing in on its prime ministerial candidate, while we're still wondering whether Rahul Gandhi is even interested in the job?
Barkha, if you think this is stealing a march on competitive prime ministerial candidate announcements, then I think the whole thing has to be re-examined. First of all, we have never believed in, we have never been part of this competition, and we do not believe that Indian elections are held in a presidential format at all, and that's a fundamental point. People elect parties, ideologies, systems, views, manifestos, and the parties then elect prime ministers. I think this is a completely fallacious approach. Secondly, what is interesting is, do you think I have to quote Mr. Advani? I can quote any number of people within the BJP. One day I can choose to quote Shatrughan Sinha, the other day Ms. Sushma Swaraj, the third day Mr. Yashwant Sinha. One day I might quote Mr. Advani, and then I can go all around the NDA, quoting a lot of other people. So here is a person, Barkha, the basic point is, who is by definition ex-hypothesi, somebody who by his very characteristic is a polarizing figure. He's a divisive figure. Now he's not divisive for me, he's not in my party. He's divisive within the BJP, which is the smallest subset, subcircle, within which comes the larger circle of the NDA.
Okay.
And thereafter which comes the largest circle of the country.
Okay.
Now if you decide to choose such a person and you spend your energies for 4 months fighting open wars in front of candid camera about such a person, why blame the Congress? I mean, if you can't set your house in order, why blame the Congress?
Okay, Piyush Goyal, is that a fair point? The fact of the matter is that there are people like Sudhindra Kulkarni, they may not be part of the BJP today, they may not represent anybody but perhaps Advani, who are today making the same point that Abhishek Singhvi is making, that if Modi is polarizing his own party, imagine what he'll do to the electorate. Now, there are many extremely successful politicians who are polarizing as well, but would you concede that this is a person who, while being extremely popular, is also extremely polarizing, and that applies to the BJP before it applies to the voter?
Well, I'm very interested now to know that Dr. Singhvi is also probably a maths wizard, other than being a very eminent lawyer. But after all the exposition on mathematical formulas that he has just given us, I think he's missed the point.
Which is the
that
point?
Ours is a party which believes in a democratic setup. We have a party where a common worker who has started from the grassroots, who has started working originally in the RSS and then worked his way through over the years within the BJP, from the communist rung, is today a candidate the party workers and the people at large
but not
are
the party patriarch or the leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha.
Permit me to finish?
Yeah, sure.
the party workers, the people at large, which is evident from every place he goes. He goes to Hyderabad, not a stronghold of the BJP. He goes to Chennai. He comes to Mumbai. He goes to Jaipur 2 days ago. You saw the people, the kind of love and adulation for him. He's a person who has gone into the DNA of the nation. He's created, I think, divisions more within the Congress because they suddenly find themselves rudderless.
Okay.
They find themselves without a leader. And I think a spectacle of a prime minister talking the way he did on the plane back to India 2 days back, where he was forced to talk about a young leader who has no grassroots
about serving under Rahul Gandhi. Yeah, okay.
I think I am happier in my party where there's a democratic setup where people at large decide who their leader is going to be.
Okay, we'll take that back to Abhishek. But Swapan Das Gupta, you're talking about the BJP's manana politics. Advani ji ko manaya ja raha hai. There's a sense of acute deja vu about this. You know, it's like the last episode of a family drama, and now the new script is going to be written. And we presume that despite Advani sulking, Modi will be announced, if not tomorrow, maybe the next couple of days. That seems set. But you're talking about this one-man veto. Does LK Advani still have that one-man veto, or is that age of the BJP now well past it?
I think one of the major mistakes we make in India, and I think it extends to all political parties, is that they want unanimity. That consensus and unanimity are often equated and merged together. Tell me any non-incumbent American president who has ever won a primary battle without opposition. We see that as normal.
But they have an institutionalized system of competition.
You see, that's precisely what
we don't have that here.
That's precisely what I'm coming to. And because of our lack of institutions, we sometimes try and contrive unanimity. Now, what I think I am very reassured by is the fact that there has been a reasonably robust discussion within the BJP about the pros and cons of Narendra Modi.
You don't think Advani's sulk is embarrassing for the party?
I think Advani's sulk is very embarrassing for himself, because I think it shows him up to be rather petulant. Because what Sushil Modi said today is being echoed in a language far more unparliamentary, and Modi was not an unparliamentary intervention throughout the country. Today, I think everybody recognizes that for all the seminal contribution Mr. Advani has made in the past, he has lost the plot.
Okay.
That he hasn't been able to detect the undercurrents which are there, not only, and in the BJP it's not an undercurrent, it's an overt one.
Do you believe the others who are opposing Modi have also missed the undercurrent? There's Sushma Swaraj, there's Murli Manohar Joshi, there's Nitin Gadkari.
No, where have you got all this?
I don't think that's
It's
true.
a discussion that's going on.
I think it's quite clear. I think what the BJP
So you don't disagree with the first two names? You don't disagree with the first two names?
I don't disagree with the first two. I think it would be very fair if the BJP went ahead with the parliamentary board meeting where everyone legitimately has their say, come out. And I think when you talk about a consensus, I think you'd say that by and large, the overwhelming majority view is that Mr. Modi should be declared.
I think that's fair enough. And Abhishek Singhvi, I think Swapan makes a very important point for our democracy, and the point is this, that just because a party does not have unanimity does not actually make the choice any less legitimate in the end. And that question needs to be confronted by the Congress, which has no inner party democracy, which has a pre-decided candidate for prime ministership, where the person is reluctant, namely Rahul Gandhi. We don't know whether he's interested in the job. Yet every Congress leader from the Prime Minister onwards is tripping over themselves to say he's our Prime Ministerial candidate. Is the Congress going to declare him as a Prime Ministerial candidate? Because you did declare Manmohan Singh in 2009.
Barkha, I'm asking you, what is the need? Why should we get up to the shenanigans and the antics which we find the BJP indulging in every day?
Why did you do it in 2009? Why did you declare a Prime Ministerial candidate in 2009?
Just a minute. Just because with a very good spin, Mr. Swapan Das Gupta has reduced the discussion to unanimity, who on earth in India is searching for unanimity? The BJP is nowhere near unanimity. It is not even near consensus.
He's saying that doesn't matter. He's saying that doesn't matter.
Period. No. I am saying a discussion and a nishkarsh, a conclusion must happen within a finite time period. When the issue becomes not the prime ministerial candidate or the party or the country, but becomes the person himself over 6 months, over 4 months. I don't think the BJP will be able to justify that on the ground of unanimity or consensus. They are going on and about it.
What about
As
the
far as our
Congress?
party
We'll
is
ask the
concerned,
BJP all these
we've
questions.
had a perfect
but
10
what
years.
about the
No, I'll
Congress
give you a
not
simple
having any
answer.
inner-party democracy?
And no
How
choice
can you
also.
talk? How can you talk about a party like us, which has been ruling this country for the last 10 years immediately now?
By
We've
one
had a perfect
family.
transition. We've had people threatening to shave their head and then being totally quiet and stunned into silence when Dr. Manmohan Singh becomes Prime Minister. He continues as the first incumbent Prime Minister of India after Nehru to complete 10 years. And we feel no need to enter into competitive Prime Minister declaratory politics today because we will wait till 2014. But we made it clear there is no vacancy for Prime Minister now, and after 2014 it will be the Congress President, the Congress leadership which will decide. It's
Okay.
very simple.
Okay.
Now, doesn't the country like that better, or does the country like that between now and 2014 every day I go on your channel discussing who's going to be Prime Minister? I mean, is the country interested in that post or in policies?
Okay,
on
Swapan
food
wanted to
security
come
bill,
in briefly and then
on
Pawan.
what we can do in
Then
Manrega,
Pawan. Yeah, Swapan,
on what we can do on this or that.
Okay,
That's
Abhishek.
the problem, Garkha. The problem is the BJP from being issueless has become Prime Minister issued. The issue is only one. Who will be Prime Minister?
And you know what?
Mr.
I think
Everybody's right senses wants
see
to be
the
seen as
pattern,
issueless.
Okay, one at a
Prime
time,
Minister.
one at a time. Swapan, you first, then Pawan, then Piyush. Swapan.
Yeah, I would say I'm just astonished at the profound arrogance of a person who says, how dare anyone question what is there in the Congress party? We have been accustomed to ruling this country. You know, this sense of profound entitlement of the ancien regime, if I may call it, that how dare someone come up from the grassroots, how dare someone get actually nominated and thrust to a position by a claim rather than through, manipulating certain situations. How dare someone who we have tried our best to appear most contentious, controversial, actually circumvent these hurdles. The reason why the BJP, the Congress might have its own compulsions, and I respect those compulsions. The reason why the BJP today has to declare someone is because they are not the incumbent.
Yeah.
They are the challenger.
Yeah.
They are the challenger. They need to go out. They need to establish their credibility. They need to establish not only what are the shortcomings of the existing regime, but what they have to offer instead. And that is why, in pure timing terms, in tactical terms, it's important
Okay.
for the BJP, even if it is
Okay,
not very
one-
Just
important
one
for the
small
Congress.
thing.